So thanks for all coming and being here with us. You know, when you think about the defense industry, you don't often think about women, but you know, the fact that we have these three executives up here on stage with us suggests that maybe we should. So, you know, Marillyn, Linda, you both have new jobs starting on January 1st. We've seen a lot of promotions in the industry with women moving into very senior positions this year. Is this coincidence, or is there something else going on here? Marillyn, do you want to start off?
Well, I don't think it's coincidence at all. I think it's a matter of the fact that, you know, the three of us and many of our colleagues have been in this industry for decades, and so we have decades of experience, we have decades of a track record of success, and we've moved up in the organization to compete for the top jobs, and so now many of us are moving into top executive positions. A lot of our jobs in our industry are certainly focused around science and technology, and so years ago there weren't as many women moving into fields and careers in science and technology, but over the years more women in the labor force, more moving into science and technology careers has meant the pipeline has moved along, and so I think that's really the rationale for why we're where we are.
Linda, do you have anything?
Well, and just to add to that, I also think as women run organizations, you tend to have more diversity within your organization, so behind us there's a pipeline of other women that can come up and step up into the roles that we have today. And I know we were talking a little bit about it earlier. Many of us were the first woman very early on in roles that we had, so we very keenly felt the need to be successful and the fact that we really were a role model for many other generations of women.
You know, and as one of the first ones that came along, particularly in this group, I grew up at a time in the 50s and 60s when it was not okay for girls to be good in science and math. And I absolutely loved science and math. And I was very fortunate to be living in Central Florida at a time when the space program began. And I just was captivated by everything that flew, whether it be airplanes or rockets. And when manned space came along, all I ever wanted to be was a pilot or an astronaut. But you know, back in those days, that was kind of a silly dream for a young girl to want to do that. And a teacher influenced me early on by explaining to me I could take my science and math skills and do something with them in a field called engineering. So at the age of 12 or 13, I knew what I wanted to do. If I couldn't fly airplanes, I could design them. And so, you know, it was all the motivation I needed. And I mean, my heart and mind was captured from a very young age.
So Linda, Marillyn, what inspired you to enter a field where there really weren't many women ahead of you?
Well, you know, I grew up in a small town in Kansas, which was right adjacent to Fort Riley. And so I grew up with military families and, you know, kids that I went to school with. My dad was with the Department of the Army. My mother was actually a nurse during World War II in the Women's Army Corps. In fact, that's where the two of them met, was in Kansas. So, you know, I grew up with that sense. So when I went in to interview at Lockheed in Marietta, Georgia, and saw all those aircraft on the factory floor and knew what, you know, important work the company does, and then saw the just amazing technology and interesting and challenging work that we have, I mean, I was all in after that, and I really never wanted to work anywhere else. So that's what seized my imagination.
How about you, Linda?
So my story is a little bit similar. Neither of my parents spoke English as a first language. My father is an engineer and a lawyer, and I used to love to go to his office, airplane wings, soccer balls, hula hoops, those orange cones that are all over the freeways. And so I knew also from a very, very young age that I was going to be in math or science in some way. So at Northrop Grumman, there's challenging work. It's very different all the time. You're never bored, and I hate being bored. You're never bored. And then it really comes down to the people and working with just really tremendous people and the mission that we serve in terms of saving lives for our military and other national priorities. And it really inspires you to stay for a very long time.
So when you look at the talent pipeline coming up in your companies, are you seeing more women, or are you still sort of seeing a dearth of women now?
Well, within our pipeline at Lockheed Martin, and I think it's true across the industry, there are many more women that have come through the pipeline. So it's back to my earlier comments. I think you see that pipeline of women coming through, and throughout our company we have senior leaders. 3 of our 4 business areas are run by women. We have many company presidents in our business, our general counsel. So women have prevalent roles throughout the company, and it is, I believe it's because we are open to having the best talent come into the positions that we have.
Yeah, the same thing's true in our company at BAE Systems. We've made quite an effort to see to it that all people qualified for positions are considered, and done that through a number of techniques that I'm sure many of the others use as well. And we now have one of our 4 business sectors are run by a woman, and we see many more coming up through the pipeline, and not just in staff functions anymore. Now we see women leading businesses and taking on profit and loss roles, and that's typically the route to the top. So that's encouraging.
So are you, Linda, let me ask you, are you finding that young women are interested in math, science, engineering, or is this sort of an area where we're still behind?
This is still an area that needs all of our attention, attracting young people, young women in particular, into the STEM disciplines, because there aren't enough. It's a national crisis. And so we corporately, I individually, spend a lot of time trying to do that, both as a role model, working with my alma mater, which is the University of Illinois, Midwest also, and trying to have teachers that are comfortable teaching math and science and that can inspire students. Our Northrop Grumman Foundation gives a lot of money to that purpose, as well as to the students themselves. I'm on the Cyber Patriot Board. They run a national championship. Truly changes lives. I mean, they have the schools bring in cheerleaders, just like a football game, and some of the winners of that contest go to college where before they wouldn't in cyber disciplines. It's just really heartwarming.
You know, I think Linda Hudson hit on it too. What seized her imagination was at a very pivotal age, and so we have a lot of programs that we do across our industry. Some we team together on, some we're doing individually in our companies. A Girls in Engineering program that we've had in New York, we probably had it for 30 years because we've been for years trying to build our pipeline of talent to come into roles, and it's that 6th graders that we spend, 18 weeks with. We bring them into the facility, we coach them, we mentor them, and that's 4th, 5th, 6th grade is a very pivotal age to get young girls' attention on science and technology careers.
Yeah, I've done many of the same things. My alma mater is the University of Florida, and I'm on the advisory board for the College of Engineering there, and we find that where young women of college age, when they have mentors and role models, right, they stick with it longer and better. And I had the opportunity to work also on a Women in Engineering program at the University of Maryland, where they bring in middle school girls to try and capture their hearts and minds of going into technology fields, because we lose young women often around 12, 13, when it's not cool to be in science or math, and other things begin to dominate their life.
So you mentioned before the space race was something that was sort of inspiring when you were coming up through the ranks. Is there the equivalent for this generation?
I would say there's several things that are, new areas within defense, but certainly in technical disciplines throughout. But cybersecurity is a very interesting area that we're seeing a lot of people are interested in. Still the space side, a lot of the unmanned opportunities. Today, the environment that our customers are operating in is very unpredictable, and it's very challenging, and the global security challenges are not going away. They're really very intense. And so there's lots of opportunities to do innovative things and bring technology, creative ways to help protect our citizens and help to improve the quality of their lives.
Great.
But I think it's a continuing concern about how can we capture the imagination of young people. And if you look back to the 60s and 70s, much of the technology that fuels all the great industries we see today often started with research and development money that came from the government, space program and other activities along the way. And it is of great concern to me that we don't see that same level of investment in our country today to continue to inspire people to do the next best thing. We often foster I think a culture of mediocrity rather than challenging people like we did when President Kennedy challenged all of us to put a man on the moon. I think that kind of vision is a bit lacking.
Right. Certainly the effort toward Mars has seized a lot of folks' interest, though. So.
Right. And I think one of our national threats today is cyber, and that really does capture the imagination. I think this idea, which Linda was talking about, of being able to translate the technology into something that you do, that's tangible, that you can then internalize, is really important. And cyber right now is doing that.
So let's actually open it up to the audience for a second. Does anyone have a question? Right back here.
Thank you.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Billie Jean King. I was friends with Sally Ride, who was the youngest American astronaut and the first woman to go to space from America. And she just passed away from cancer. I'd just like to ask you what you think her contributions were to all of us. And thank you for all your inspiration, because we need more kids in science and technology, girls particularly. Thank you.
Well, I knew Sally Ride as well, and had the opportunity to work with her on the President's initiative to try and bring more funding from corporate America into the whole STEM disciplines. And I can say that I found her a huge inspiration and role model. And the first day my assistant came in a few years ago and said, Sally Ride is on the phone and wants to talk to you. I can't tell you, I was excited as that 12-year-old was years ago. And I think the world will miss her, but she certainly made a profound mark, I think, on society in general.
So our foundation gives to something called Weightless Flight, which is in her honor. And school teachers go up and fly at zero gravity, and they come off that flight absolutely giddy. They are bubbling, jumping up and down, so excited, and that enthusiasm carries over into the schools. So when that happens, a little bit of her is with them every time.
She was quite an inspiration, and I would say, Jenny talked this morning about purpose-driven work that we do, what's interesting and challenging, and I think she was one that really brought that home to all of us about what excitement there is and dynamic opportunities there are to take our nation forward, so very exciting.
Great, I think we had another question.
Yeah, I'm Laura Mather. So I'm in cybersecurity, and thrilled to hear you say that that's a good way to energize our country. I totally agree with that. Given what happened with the space race, we haven't had the same Kennedy speech about cybersecurity that we did about the space race, though I do know like the National Cybersecurity Alliance is doing a lot of education and such. Mm-hmm. Given what happened with the space race, is that going to be enough?
Well, the first time we have a major incident, it'll probably take it to another level. All three of us have businesses that work in cybersecurity, and so it's of great interest to all of us. But the day will come, there will be an incident that I think will ratchet up the level of interest in the country. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, and there are glimmers, what happened in Estonia and Georgia and other places, and I think there's a much greater awareness in both the public and private sectors about what the need is and why there's an urgency associated with doing something quickly.
So, as we do, and like you do, we do a lot of work certainly with our customers, our government customers, but we're finding also a demand for our services for a lot of commercial industry today. It's not just an issue around defense, it's not just an issue around our national security efforts, but day to day, many of you in this room, I'm sure, are concerned about cyber threats for your businesses.
We probably have time for just one last question. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ana Chavez, and I'm the CEO for Girl Scouts of the USA. 2 points. One, we just conducted an MOU with Janet Napolitano, who's the Homeland Security Secretary for this country, lifetime Girl Scout member, about cybersecurity with girls and what they can do to activate their communities. But second, our Girl Scout Research Institute just came out with the study this year on STEM. And when we talked to high school girls across the country, 74% of them said they love STEM. They're really excited about those opportunities. But when we asked them to rate it as a career opportunity, they rated it actually toward the bottom. So we see this as a major imperative for this country. It is not going to be a niche market to be in STEM in the future. So what do you see as far as the government fulfilling a role of actually activating corporate entities like yourself or even government agencies to fund programs for girls to actually engage more in STEM?
That's a great question. I know many of us collectively work on a lot of things like FIRST Robotics or working with the 4-H or Girl Scouts. You know, there's a lot of initiatives where we can work together, but I think it is something we have to bring together as a consortium. We just hosted this year a USA Science and Technology Festival on the Mall in Washington, D.C., and we had over 500 science and engineering organizations come together. And I think where we can really make a difference is where we pool our resources, where we're not trying to do it individually to really move the needle and work with our country, with our national organizations. In fact, often young girls are looking for role models, and if they don't see role models in the media or on television or the things that they watch, then it may not be their top career that they look at. So we've got to get out there and do more of that. And
I would not miss the teachers who can point out the career opportunities. I mentioned a teacher had an important role in getting my interest channeled toward an engineering career. We spend a lot of money supporting the National Math and Science Initiative, which helps train teachers to better teach STEM fields to students. But I think we all have to do a better job. It is a serious issue in our country. And by the way, I was a proud Girl Scout along the way, too.
Yeah, and thank you for what you're doing for the Girl Scouts, because I think the more of us that are vocal, both as businesses and as individuals about this, the better off we're all going to be. So thank you very much.
Terrific. Well, that's it. We've run out of time, but thank you all so much for being up here with me.
Thank you.